Everybody ready? Okay, thanks, everybody. I'd like to call this public safety meeting to order at 6:34 on Monday, May 19th, 2025. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the April 7th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
And a second? Second. That motion passes. Our second order of business tonight is to consider the recommendations to ordinance updates from the Shelters Trap, Neuter, and Return Program, also known as TNR. And I'd like to first thank Councilwoman Marks for bringing this to Council's attention with the help of all of our friends and volunteers from LaSwab, to Mr. Crumley and the city staff of the shelter for their continued commitment to animals in our city, and the City Law Department for their work researching and writing the updates. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Ms. Swallow or Mr. Vargo, can you walk us through the new changes?
Sure, I would be happy to. So the ordinance that you have before you, beginning, I don't think I printed the same version that you're looking at. I printed an older version, but it has the same changes. 50502. A, it just basically takes B and moves it up into the language of A so that it just consolidates it. The next change is in subsection D. We added cat in addition to a dog, so that a cat in heat, a female cat in heat, must be confined. The next change is subsection G, formerly H. We, at the animal control supervisor's request, added back in, which this used to be, years ago, there was the ability to just write a citation for a minor misdemeanor if an animal were found at large, rather than having it be a fourth-degree misdemeanor where the individual would have to appear in court. So we added that back in, and then also a heightened penalty. So if there's a second or subsequent offense, that it becomes a fourth-degree misdemeanor. The next change is in 50503. A, in addition to adding in the language microchipped, a lot of animals are now microchipped, just newer technology. So if the animal is not microchipped or wearing a valid registration tag. And at the end of that section, in addition to how that animal can be disposed of, we put in there the option to adopt to a person or transfer to an animal rescue or shelter. Subsection B adds the language microchipped or ear-tipped. And again, at the end of that section, adopted to a person, transferred to an animal rescue or shelter. And then cleaning up the language, animal shelter coordinator has been changed to supervisor, so that language was updated. Subsection C is a new section. States that if an animal is not microchipped, ear-tipped, or wearing an identification tag, they're presumed to be unowned or unharbored and may be immediately subject to trapping, spaying, or neutering, and the return program, adopted to a person, transferred to an animal rescue or shelter, or otherwise disposed of in a humane manner. And again, the end of subsection D, formerly C, includes the language adopted to a person, transferred to an animal rescue, shelter, or otherwise disposed of. Subsection F requires that an animal that cannot be identified be checked for a microchip. Section 6 of the ordinance, 50506, abandoning animals, it changes the penalty to a misdemeanor of the first degree so that it's in line with the Ohio Revised Code. Section 8, which is 50512. Section B. This is where there's a prohibition for an animal defecating on somebody's property, allows for that to happen so long as the person in control of the animal immediately removes the waste. And then Section 9 is going to codify the rules for the TNR program as they were drafted for the pilot program. Essentially requires training of anyone that is going to participate in TNR, defines a community cat caregiver, ear tipping, which we know to be an indicator that an animal has already been through the TNR program. And then it states the permitted acts, so that it's clear that it's not violating the other portions of the animal control ordinances. Most of these changes were proposed by, what is the name of the group? The acronym? LASWAB, thank you. There were a few changes that were inserted, and one of those was to codify the current program that is in place.
Okay, thank you. Colleagues, any questions or comments on what you've seen here?
Chair? Just a process comment, and I think I see where we're going here, but just wanted to kind of clarify for colleagues and the public as well. We currently have right now in committee a communication from September of 2024 that I would describe as creating a basis for a work session to work with law department, with LASWAB, with the public, with the animal control officer, and council to kind of come up with an ordinance. But that ordinance technically isn't in this committee. It's going to be introduced this evening at the regular council meeting. Is that
Correct.
okay?
This version that has kind of come to fruition after taking into account LASWAB's recommendations and the administration's input.
Okay, so then I think tonight, process-wise, we could receive, this committee could receive and file the communication, and then this evening, likely this would be referred to, the ordinance and first reading would be referred to public safety, and then we could consider changes or have more discussion, maybe emanating from this evening, and we can just hold them until the next meeting or something like that?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. I just had a process question. So I think tonight our action would be receive and file, and then we do more work in committee after it's referred. The ordinance is referred this evening.
Okay. Do you want to make a motion now, or do you want to wait until?
I think we typically, the public might comment. There's some folks here from LASWAB, I think, or other council members may have some questions, and then I think at the end we can make a motion.
Councilmember Marks, anything on this one? No, not at this time. And then we do have some guest speakers from our community that would like to say a few words about this.
Hi, I'm Kara Vlack-Lasher, former president of Citizens Committee for the Lakewood's Animal and Shelter. Before I make my statement, so to make it clear, I don't have to address specific things in this ordinance now because it's going to be introduced to council and then referred back to this committee where we can make our comments at that point. Is that what I'm hearing?
So that's what we're looking at, I think, so yes.
Yeah, I do think that we might as well use the time we have. So if you have comments, it would perhaps make the next meeting a little more brief.
More efficient? Okay. So I'm just going to skip my whole major points on history because we're all up to date, I think, unless anybody wants to hear the history of how this came to be.
I think you're good there. Thank you. I
can
think you're
skip that,
good.
okay.
Thank you.
So my second point tonight is broad-based. I think we have some individual issues with some of the line items, but broad-based for tonight, it's just centered around the section that the Law Department added. While LaSwab and CCLIS were contemplating the update of these ordinances, a small group of folks got together. They were members of LaSwab and CCLIS with the incoming shelter supervisor, Officer Crumley, in early 2024 to develop a two-step process surrounding the TNR in the city that they could be comfortable with, because before it was like it's illegal. This was meant as a temporary stopgap measure for folks to be able to continue TNR practices without the fear of citations. I and a few of my colleagues tonight, Megan Galeta with CCLAS and Emily Christescu with LaSwab, were on that committee and with Officer Crumley, and the small group helped develop the registration process that they're recommending and also a set of policies and procedures. These were never intended to be permanent, but a temporary bridge until the ordinances could be reviewed and clarified. The registration process proved to be extraordinarily cumbersome, and Megan can speak to that next. The policies and procedures developed were best practices or a set of guidelines, and certainly were never meant to be codified. However, several of these policies and procedures have been incorporated into the proposed ordinance before you. And I'd like to draw your attention to the section on the second to last page, Section 9, the new Section 505.25, also listed as 505.025, trap, neuter, and return of community cats. Please refer to Section B, permitted acts. Trap, neuter, return of community cats is permitted only by community cat caregivers who have registered with the animal control supervisor and have provided proof of trap, neuter, return training. All trap, neuter, return, and community cat caregivers shall comply with the following, and it lists 12 points that were all pulled from that policies and procedures document that we all worked on. I have serious concerns about codifying most of these lines. Again, they are best practices and were never meant to be codified. They are not clear enough to be included in the ordinances and, in my opinion, are not enforceable. For instance, number 7, community cat givers shall have a plan for community cats that need extended recovery time. How can you codify shall have a plan? And how could you possibly enforce this? Number 3, traps shall be continually monitored while set to reduce the stress and prevent any extended cage time. Continually? Can you define that? Is that 24/7 and a trapper cannot leave the trap to eat, sleep, or use the bathroom? Number 5, appointments for sterilization, ear tipping, and rabies vaccination shall be made ahead of the trapping and shall be completed within 24 hours of trapping. Having an appointment made in advance is a best practice, but it shouldn't be codified. Trapping cats isn't a science, and the best laid plans is often foiled by these little buggers. Even the clinics know this, and that is why, for instance, PetFix, a well-renowned nonprofit spay and neuter clinic in our area, allows walk-ins of 1 cat per colony per day, Monday through Thursday, without an appointment. Number 2, traps shall be humane traps that will not intentionally cause injury to any trapped animal. Wholeheartedly agree, but how do you define a humane trap? Where is the definition in this section? I think you see my points. I strongly recommend this whole section be removed from the ordinance and it continue to be used as a policies and procedures page as it was meant to be on the city website, as it is now, for citizens inquiring about TNR in the city. I also recommend removing the requirement to register from the city to perform TNR and provide proof of training, and I will allow my colleague Megan Galeta to further elaborate on those issues. I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have for me.
Thank you very much. The first couple on that section. Oh. Nope, it's on. Am I not close enough? The first couple in that section are the definitions. You're okay with?
Yes,
Those
that was
there.
part of the ordinances that we recommended and provided. We worked with Dana Marie Pinella, who's a respected animal law expert in the state of Ohio.
Okay, so the definitions are okay. It's when we get to the permitted acts, that's section B
Yes,
on down. Okay.
yes. And I have other recommendations on some of the line items that were removed too, but specifically that section just really flagged me that those were policies and procedures, and we didn't expect that those would be codified, and I really think that'd be a hard time enforcing those.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have questions for Ms. Lasher?
Yes. Thank you for your expertise on this and for your willingness to provide it to us. So would your suggestion be that basically these best practices are removed from the ordinance and there be some discretion of the animal control officer, or would you want further definition? Because I guess I could see it two ways. One way you could say all trap, neuter, return by community caregivers will comply with policy guidance from the animal control officer or something, or the Lakewood Police Department or Lakewood Animal Control Office. And then they could have a document, that so it's a little more administrative than code-based. Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm kind of suggesting removing that whole site and then having it as a policy and procedures, and if somebody, reaches out and say, how do I trap, neuter, return, and here's your policy and procedures. But to codify it and to have, a penalty assigned with it if you don't put a sheet over your trap. Because, and it's a best policy, it's a best procedure. We know if you trap a cat, put a sheet over it to reduce the stress, and we provided this information. But to codify that and to assign a penalty to it if you don't do it seems a little over the top for us, especially we don't understand why this is just for cats, because for wildlife, we don't have anything in the code for wildlife. You can trap a raccoon. We don't have any of this codified for the wildlife trapping that you have. It seems unfairly targeting the people that are trying to help the feral cat population as well. I mean, we're happy to have these guidelines. We provided all of this information, and it's good information. It's best practice, or it was a compromise. It was a camel. It was committee. It was a committee that put all this together.
Horse built by committees.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
exactly. Some of it in there I didn't agree with, but other people wanted it in there. But again, it's policies, procedures, there's some best practices in it, but to codify it, it's a little too much. And again, people are they're just trying to help these cats get and reduce the stray cat population in Lakewood on their own time, with their own money, to help a community problem. And it just seems there's a lot of administrative and ordinances going on. No offense to the shelter. I mean, and I don't understand where it's coming from. I don't understand where it's coming from. Community volunteers are trying to help this problem. And I feel unfairly targeted. Even with the citations, when they were saying we're going to cite you for feeding these cats outside, you're putting food in the trap. Well, people who are trapping wildlife are doing the same thing. You have to put food in the trap. And that was pointed out to us that it was section 505.11, nuisance conditions. No person shall feed or cause to be fed any animals outdoor, except for a licensed dog, or unless they were operating under the guidelines of a program approved by the Director of Public Safety, providing for TNR. That's the only place TNR is mentioned. It doesn't prohibit it. It just says you can't feed an animal unless you're doing TNR. But for some reason, that was interpreted as feeding an animal. If you're putting food in a trap, you're feeding an animal, therefore TNR is illegal. But you have to put food in a trap. You're not feeding the animal outside. And, again, the people who are trapping wildlife to be euthanized, they weren't targeted. They weren't threatened with citations. They weren't, told that you can't do that. You have to put food in a trap to attract an animal. Again, they didn't know TNR, we weren't putting food in a trap inside a garage. They have no idea where we were trapping the cats. If you put food in a trap, you put the trap in the garage, that's not feeding an animal outside. We could have put bait in a ball. The smell brings the animal in. That's not feeding the animal outside, yet we were targeted as feeding an animal outside. I don't understand. I don't understand why this is such an issue with the city, that TNR is such a problem. It's a group of people trying to help. Now, I understand the old shelter people were upset because if you trapped a cat and it was friendly, it wasn't a feral cat, people would bring it to the shelter to be adopted. Guess what? That's what the shelter is for. If you have a stray cat, somebody lost their cat, it's outside, somebody traps it, that's why we have an animal shelter. You bring the cat to the shelter so it can be reunited or adopted out. The old shelter staff was a little upset with that. So when Gary came on, the old shelter staff was like, be careful of these people at TNR, they're gonna bring you all these cats. You're gonna be overwhelmed with cats. So Gary, when he came in, thought he was gonna be overwhelmed with cats. To his credit, he worked with us, he sat down, that's where we developed these procedures and policies. He's like, let's work together. I don't want this to happen. I want to have some control. I want to know what's going on. So we sat down with him. He was open-minded. He worked with us. We developed these procedures and policies. He said, how about a registration process? We said, fine. That's great. Let's register. And Gary worked with us. We did this. Megan, bless her little heart, has done all of these registrations for how long? She gets everybody registered. Not one single citizen will register. Megan goes and registers. She fills out the form, gives it to Gary. She has people sign, a property owner sign, but she's the one doing the paperwork. She's running all over the city doing this. Not a single citizen is willing to register. I'll have her talk to that because she's the one doing all this work herself, personally. Is that my time? No. But Officer Crumley has been great working with us, but I think he was misinformed that he was going to be overwhelmed with cats from the TNR process. To date, Officer Crumley, how many cats have you been brought from the TNR process, if I may ask?
To date, none so far. But I'm being told I might be getting some kittens in the next week or two, but
Yeah.
nothing as of yet.
He's not being overwhelmed.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the nuances that you're explaining to us. I also appreciate the law department trying to give us as much control as we can, but not being overwhelming. So there's definitely a middle ground here. And I think with just some more communication with the law department and figuring out exactly, what should be best practices and what should be law is a pretty easy fix.
And then there were a couple of lines that were removed that we were trying to give protections in the ordinances to community cat caregivers. We defined what a community cat giver is. That's a person that on your property, you have a cat. It's a stray cat, you see it, it's on your property. You want to stop that one cat from being 10 or 20 in a year because it's not fixed. That's where we get the problem in Lakewood. They're not fixed and they multiply quickly. If you TNR that cat, ear tip it, you identify it, that cat's already been sterilized. But you can't just TNR it and dump it. Somebody has to care for it. It's not a wild animal. It is because you can't bring it inside, but they're domesticated animals that have been dumped and reproduced. Somebody has to care for it, and that means feeding it and keeping an eye on it to make sure if it gets in a fight and it's bleeding, somebody has to care for it, and that's the community cat caregiver. They put food outside. And it's really hard to codify compassion. You can put in here all you want, do not feed animals outside. I guarantee you, there's thousands of people feeding the animals outside anyway. Because you see a starving cat, you're gonna do it.
Yeah.
People do it. So, and we had some things in here to protect the community caregiver, like if you, we put those lines in there, community cat. If you pick up a cat, if you see a cat on the street, it's been out there for 3 months, yes, it could be somebody's cat. They lost it 3 months ago. We have no way of knowing. If you trap that cat, if you scan, there's no collar, there's no ID, but if it's not fixed, the TNR person's gonna fix it. So that's why we put some protections in there that if it's free roaming and you don't have a collar, there's no tag, you can try to scan it for a microchip. If you can't identify that owner, it's free rein to be able to TNR it, because it's unfixed, it's free roaming, it's at large. So we kind of we wanted to put some protections in there for those community cat caregivers. If they trap a cat, it's unfixed, they can TNR it without somebody going, "You fixed my cat. It was, you know, it's a stray cat. It's out running out loud at large," which is illegal. So we tried to, you know, put some protections in there that were removed, that we'd like to consider adding back in.
Okay, that sounds good. Anything else that you wanted to share with us, or anybody else in your group? Yeah, come on up.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time and appreciate it. I know there's so many more important things. I don't want to say more important things. I know you all have very important things on your plate, but we appreciate your time.
Hello, everyone. Just as a reminder, I am Megan Galeta, the Community Cats Director for CCLAS, or CLAWS, the Citizens Committee for Lakewood's Animals and Shelter. Hello again. I have some notes, and I may repeat a little bit of what Kara said. We kind of talked a bit, but I may repeat a little bit. My main points are definitely in reference to the new section, the trap, neuter, return of community cats, section 505.025. And my first question in regards to that, it uses some of the things that are in the policies and procedures and some that aren't. And I ask, why were those cherry-picked and other things weren't? I would also like to say that some of the things that are in this document are actually not best practices. So if we were trying to codify best practices, which I truly do not think we should do, because best practices, by their very nature, change over time. The last thing I want to have happen is have something in a document that in 2 months we review it and, oh no, we've said something that's no longer possible. There's only one organization that does certification for TNR, and if they decide tomorrow not to do it anymore, then part of what underpins the training is gone. They're the ones that offer certification in TNR. So I urge this group, and I will urge council itself, to not put such specific details in the ordinance that we have to do this process again in 6 months, because this committee and council, with all respect, doesn't have time to do that. We should make the document so that it can stand the test of time and not be so specific, and codify these more procedural things in a policies and procedures document. I know I'm reiterating what Kara said, but that's also very much my perspective of it too. I have multiple examples, I don't know if you do actually want them here, of things that are in this document that aren't best practices, or shouldn't be required, and certainly not in an ordinance. The piece about Statement 5, appointments for sterilization, ear tipping, and rabies vaccination shall be made ahead of the trapping and shall be completed within 24 hours of trapping. It's actually a best practice suggested by the 2 main TNR groups in the country to start trapping 48 hours before your appointments, especially if you have multiple appointments. Because as Kara said, cats don't do what we want them to do. We can set ourselves up as much as possible for success, withholding food, trying to figure out every single person who's feeding so that they can withhold food. And we get there, and we've got the traps out, and cats take one look at the trap and they're gone. And multiple cats do that. Or they know that the next adjacent street, 4 houses down, they can go eat there, and we don't know that that person is feeding. So you need to start sooner than 24 hours. So putting something that detailed in the ordinance sets up people who are volunteers, wanting to help cats, wanting to ultimately help residents who don't like cats, because doing TNR will help there be fewer cats, sets us up for failure. And then we don't have those appointments filled if we don't have enough time to trap. Let me say just a few words about the registration process. I truly understand where the city and Gary are coming from in wanting to have registration, wanting to know what's going on in the city. I do also reiterate the point that that's not required of people trapping wildlife. They don't have to register, they don't have to undergo training. It is instructed on the website to contact the shelter and let them know, but people who are doing it not involving the shelter, they're working through an extermination company. So we're not treating these things the same way. And the registration process has been onerous. As Kara mentioned, when people find out they have to do this, most people aren't very happy. I go over the paperwork with them. I go over the policies and procedures with them. And to that point, there are a number of ones on there that I have to say, don't worry about that, I have special permission. Don't worry about that, I have special permission. So we're writing up policies and procedures that me, as sort of the pilot person, is constantly going around with Gary's understanding in terms of trapping during certain time periods. He has allowed me to trap because wintertime is one of the best times to trap so that you're not getting pregnant cats and mamas with litters out there. But I know not to trap when it's 10 degrees out. So that's another thing, that you don't want these kinds of things in the ordinance. People do not want to get trained. So I think that there should be some way to compromise on that. What we have been doing so far is I'm certified, everybody's coming in under me. That requires more time than I can possibly tell you about, because I'm dealing with the caregivers at this house, 2 houses down from there, and this next street over, figuring out who's withholding food, where can we put traps? Do we have to have each person who I'm putting a trap on their property sign up through the shelter? All of this will make it more difficult. I've been willing to do this. I've spent many, many hours doing it. Residents aren't going to do this. So, and some of this we can talk about. What I would hope today is that the committee will say, we have had so many people express concerns about the new trap, neuter, return section that we're not ready to put that forward to full council. Let's have that reviewed with LeSwab and CCLAS and the law department, and figure out so that we get language that's ready for city council to really get into without looking at stuff that is policies and procedures. That's what I would really hope. And I look forward to sitting down with Gary and LeSwab and others from CCLAS with Kara to go over what became the policies and procedures. They've been in place for a year now. It's a good time to review them and see what worked, what didn't. There are things that may have worked from Gary's perspective, but my gosh, as the person who's doing it, that's really made a lot of work. And as we hope to expand the program to other residents so that they can trap the one cat that they feed, they're not going to do some of this. And yet, on the other hand, I understand the wanting to know what's going on in the city and trying to have some oversight. So I think there can be some really good discussions there. I don't think this is ready. to go back to council, unless it goes with the provisions that the working group will get together and, you know, take feedback and things like that. I think that pretty much covers it. I've told you a little bit about how difficult things have been. I've got some other examples in those points, either why they actually shouldn't be in the ordinance. I did meet somebody who is a very seasoned trapper who said, I don't care what the city says in terms of certification. I shouldn't have to prove what I know. I'm just going to work with an individual resident on their private property and trap the cats like I've been doing all along. So I don't think that is, you as a body, me as a person should think, well, they're just not going to do it. There are going to be people who don't do it anyway. But I would like to work together to get this part, because it is going to be new, and I look forward to putting it out to the community that you can do this now. If you're a feeder, you don't have to hide. Let people know, reach out for help. There's going to be help. But I want it to be something that can be sustainable and isn't so prescriptive, and what is there actually complies with best practices as well. So again, thank you so much for the chance to bring these things up. I know I reiterated some things that Kara said. I just don't think this section is ready to go or should exist as it is. So thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions?
Not at this point for you. Thank you very
All right.
much. I
Thank you so
appreciate it. And don't you worry about saying things 2 or 3 times. We can all hear it over again. Okay. Not a problem at all. So it sounds like there might be a meeting in the midst. That would make.
Real quick.
Yeah, you sure can.
I'll be quick because I agree with everything they said. But I'm Emily Christacue, and I serve on CCLAS and LaSwab. And unfortunately, our LaSwab chairwoman is resigning because she's moving to Avon Lake. So we're going to be very sad to lose Erin McDonald. With that said, I would love to have more time in LaSwab in our meetings to go over what was presented from the law department. So I guess I would ask for more time to let that group go through what came back and analyze it as well.
Yeah, I don't think that's a problem at all. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks on that. Sorry, thank you. I just on that point, we had kind of gone around this just procedurally because kind of how this went too is that we had content in a communication that the law department helpfully put together into an actual ordinance so that we have something that we can edit and draft. So, so we kind of are doing this twice in a way where we might normally have it come as an ordinance more fully baked once and then have a, so anyway, so to get through the procedure, one suggestion I had was that because it's actually, the ordinance isn't being introduced until tonight, is that we could do a joint referral to public safety and LaSwab, and then I would suggest to the chairs, apparently the new chair of LaSwab, which is a bummer, that we're losing Erin, yes, but that could be a joint meeting also, so that conversation could even happen one time rather than the law department and Gary having to go to multiple meetings and shuffling back and forth. So that could be a thought, and there certainly could be conversation in between also too. But I'd leave that up to the chairs of the committee, but tonight we would need to refer it, so you can think about that. If you'd like to do it together or separately, or have LaSwab look at it and come back to public safety.
Yeah, I'm open to recommendations on this, so whatever seems to make sense. Let's do that.
Yeah, if you do a joint meeting, then all members of LaSwab can be here and discuss it with the members of public safety, and then everybody's hearing the same thing at the same time, is my personal thought. And then the other element I did want to ask about with the registration, because, you know, I'm a crazy cat lady myself, so so like I'm always you know, a lot of these best practices listed, I can see in the registration thing of the concern for the welfare of the cats to a certain extent, that you're not having people who don't know what they're doing or they're doing it at a bad time and all those sorts of things. Now, that doesn't mean that they won't still do it and we don't know and it's on the property. So I just kind of wanted to get a sense of, is the idea of the registration more of that? And I don't know, maybe, or is it, what's the
Yes,
idea?
so it's a one-page registration form that we created, basically asking for the identity of the, we'll call them community cat caregiver, where they're going to be placing the traps, and sign permission from the property owner if the property is owned by somebody other than the caregiver.
So is that, but the idea is to,
Just make the city aware that it's happening if we receive complaints that, you know, somebody's torturing cats, or that we can clearly say, well, no, this person is participating in a TNR program, we're aware of it, they're fine.
okay. Have we had complaints about people doing this?
I haven't received any.
Okay.
I get more complaints from neighbors because the cat caregivers that they, you know, names that they give them, are feeding the animals and feeding the cats, and it's bringing more cats to the area, bringing more wildlife. Then they also complain that it's causing rat issues. So I do get a lot of those complaints.
Okay, so that's kind of hard to separate, right? So if you have, the original ordinance was no person shall feed an animal outside other than as part of this program, and now we're saying, okay, we have this program, so it's allowed for this purpose. So if someone was just feeding animals outside but not doing TNR, that would still, are we still keeping that section?
Currently, as written, it is in there. We may need to figure that out and tweak that, you know, based on some of the comments here.
Yeah, because that's what, if what we're getting is complaints about people feeding, and to the point too of like, I can't say that I've never put out some kibble for a cat that's wandered into my yard that looked a little, you know, sad. But like, it's one thing if you're getting hundreds of cats and raccoons and everything else. So I can see both elements there, but I'm just wondering if the intention is more to avoid having excessive animal gathering or the rat issues or something like that. It's not my meeting, but Cindy's okay.
Go ahead.
Yep.
So in the original ordinance recommendation that CCLAS brought to LaSwab and then had sent on, in the definition of community cat caregiver, it says that community cat caregiver definition, I believe it says that they are participating in TNR. So community cat caregiver isn't just somebody who's thrown food out to a whole bunch of animals. It's somebody who has TNR'd a cat and now is caring for that cat that's has been TNR'd. It's not somebody who's just feeding a whole gaggle of cats. It's somebody who has TNR'd a cat or cats and is now caring for that TNR'd cat. So you can feed that TNR, that's the whole purpose of that. That community cat caregiver, okay, is that caring for the TNR'd cat, not a whole bunch of stray cats that aren't fixed.
Correct, and thank you for that.
Yeah.
So in subsection 2, A2, under the definition, it does include feeding.
So yes, you would be allowed to feed and care for that so a community cat caregiver is allowed to feed.
Correct.
As long as they're participating in the TNR. So if Gary's getting, or excuse me, Officer Crumley is getting complaints that this guy, that like the Davis Court issue, this woman's just throwing food out, there's, 80 cats. Well, she's not a community cat caregiver by definition because she is not participating in the TNR program. She has not TNR'd those cats. So that's the difference, and that's why that was written that way. So you can't claim to be a community cat caregiver if you're just feeding stray cats. You have to have participated. You have had to have TNR'd your cat. And you can tell if the cat's TNR'd because the ear tipped. Does that clarify that for you?
Yeah, I was just trying to get a sense of, The various problems we're trying to solve and how we do that through legislation. So if we want to have a way to solve for the problem of not to name a specific house, but as, like someone who, where there are, excessive animal gatherings
Sorry.
and it's a health issue and we need to be able to address it. So that's one issue that we need to be able to solve for as a city. And then we also need to be able to solve for helping our community cats address the population. So I think both could happen through the legislation. We just have to get that fine tuned and as you.
And again, you are going to, people, you can say all you want, don't feed animals, and there's going to be, if you see a starving cat, people are going to put a little kibble out on the porch. That's going to happen. But, you know, Officer Crumley will be able to address if there's somebody that has 10 cats and he gets a call that there's 10 cats and there's rats out there. You know, there's the fine line between one and you have a bowl of kibble on your back porch for that one cat, and then there's, you know, rats and all kinds of raccoons, and you're throwing food all over, and there's 10 cats, and that's a community household problem. So
Right,
that's why.
and again, I think that's the importance for registration. And
that's
I
where
get it.
right.
I mean, we don't charge for the registration, but if we have somebody registered and they're like, okay, we're a community cat caregiver, then we have that location, we know that it's happening, and if there is a complaint, you know, Gary can contact whoever it is and they can explain we're doing this, and we can respond with, well, this is what's going on, we know what's happening, and this is why it's happening.
Yeah, I get it.
Because it's complaint driven.
Right.
Right? I mean, you're not out looking for people leaving kibble out for a cat.
Yeah.
Correct.
Or
And
another animal.
to me, it's a balancing act, because I get TNR and what they're trying to do, but it's always a community of cats that's getting targeted. So once they're TNR'd, obviously, somebody in that area is still gonna be feeding them and taking care of the 10 cats that might be in that community, but you still have the other residents in the area that might not be cat lovers. And they don't want the 10 cats roaming in and out of their yard and all that. So that's where it's a balancing act, I think, especially for me.
And the ultimate goal is if you TNR 10 cats, you're going to have 120 less cats next year. And that's the huge point of this. The ultimate goal is to reduce the amount of stray cats in the area.
And I just wanted to say one more piece in regards to the registration. Part of what has been difficult is how the form has been created and how it's being implemented. So we're asking, so again, I fully want to know, or understand why that's a want to know. And I will share with you that on more than one occasion, Gary reached out to me and he said, did you TNR on such and such street? I got a complaint about that street. And I figured out the address and I said, yes, I TNR'd about 8 doors away. So I could go then to the person who he spoke to the person who the complaint was about, and they had been TNRing, but I could go and help them further. So that's a perfect example of where registration works, most definitely. One piece where it's difficult is the way the form is structured. It's requiring dates when traps are going to be set. People may not know that, or they are waiting for appointments, or they may be going to set it on a day when they see a cat they haven't seen in 2 weeks and take it to Pet Fix. So if I would truly support a registration that is more of a, we feed community cats. We agree we are TNRing these community cats, not a one that is based on, I'm going to trap on this day. If I trap wildlife, I'm going to release them. That's already in the policies and procedures, that piece too. So kind of making it an evergreen registration as opposed to a specific trapping registration, I think would be much easier for people to understand, much less process for me to try to manage and to try to remember to tell Gary, oh, I'm trapping tomorrow because I have an appointment. Gary, I trapped today because I have an appointment tomorrow and I didn't have a chance to tell you. It was a mom who unfortunately, her entire litter perished, and she's in a room. So now it's like fish in a barrel. So I can actually put the trap in there, withhold the food. She didn't go in today. Hopefully have her go in tomorrow and get her to the APL. So it has worked. It has worked in some instances. I hope that we can look at it again and think through the long term of hopefully more people come forward and say, yes, I'm taking care of cats, please help me. And even if it's just us giving handouts and us doing training. The piece that I haven't talked about is I would love to create training. I've done training at libraries before. I'd love to do Lakewood specific training. We're just not there yet. So anyway, that's another piece with the registration that if we get together as a working group and can talk it through, I really think we can come to something that meets those needs, but works better for people who are going to be doing TNR. Okay.
Very good.
Thank you.
And a point on one of the items that you said earlier about the training and being certified, I don't think that anyone is expecting anybody to become certified, but just have some level of training. So we can work through that as well and put some language in there as approved by the animal control supervisor, to be clear. And again, it's just to make sure that the people are participating in the program are educated and understand what they should be doing and shouldn't be doing.
I do understand that because of any person, I don't want people to be hurting cats.
Right.
You know, so I think there's a way to do that as well.
Very good. So it sounds like at one of your next meetings, maybe the law department will attend and you guys can figure out some of those spaces where you all want stuff put back in and maybe some of the stuff that was a little too much can get taken back out of there and go into a best practices kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Very good. Any other colleagues? Anybody else? Yes.
How, Director Swallow, how is the registration form collected? Is it paper format?
I believe it is paper. We could make it electronic.
I was just going to say, I think it would be so much easier if you made it electronic. You're talking to people, they can go on their phone, plug in the information, and then you can easily extract that information and download it as well.
Very good suggestion.
Quickly,
Yes.
just on that point too, is that you could also do that so it would generate a spreadsheet that would have all the addresses, so it'd be easy to just glance, but that's a tech nerd thing. And then just point tonight when this is on the docket, do we want to refer it simultaneously to both public safety and LaSwab, or do you want LaSwab first and then have them refer it back to council?
It probably makes sense for them to meet first and hash through their ideas.
If I may, Chair, I think the way to do it would be like a simultaneous referral and then scheduling with the clerk's office. We can just make sure that if we want LaSwab to meet first, we can just wait till they meet and then schedule our public safety meeting. And they may get through it or may not. So I think that's probably the way to go tonight. I think in this meeting, we may just want to make a motion to receive and file the communication, which I'd be happy to do. I'll make a motion to receive and file the communication.
Very good. There's a motion on the floor. Any comments? Second? We have a motion and a second. That passes. Hearing no other comments or questions from this committee, we are adjourned.
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you.
Trying to sort out, like, why are we doing these different things, and what are we trying to do, and it's, so I appreciate everything.
Like I said, that's why only
I get it, yeah.
I get team.
We gotta balance it all, yeah. I get it. Sure, we'll find the right balance, yeah. What is TNR, track and release?
Trap and release. So you can't
And vaccinate, actually.
and it's good because you are preventing future pregnancies, so it's great. But it's like they're saying, well, they don't have to do it for wildlife.
Yeah, but they're just gonna kill the wildlife.
So they're trapping it, we're picking up kind of all we have to do. So
I wanna try to find
the
too if we
difference
can,
is a cat that you're gonna hold
yeah,
and then put back in the release. You gotta make sure.
yeah. No, I get it, yeah. And we wanna have a mechanism so if we do have the White House. Yeah, we have law to address it, but also that we have law that prevents the good. So, yeah, so I'm just trying to understand. Right.
Because I know she's big.
Yeah.
But somebody that I don't know and I don't know what experience they have, those are, we all, everybody's gonna find the law no matter what.
Right.
No matter what law's out there.
I know, right.
You know, you're gonna have somebody that's not gonna do that for a law.
Yeah.
Right. But if they're being grossly irresponsible, we have to
Yeah, of course. Yeah. All right, thank you. And thanks for your flexibility with this.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Appreciate it. So I want to, come and, so, that is. We're gonna have to bring it up one night.
There's no reason. You wanna get to my heart?
Gluten-free? Is it okay to have your favorite?
She cooks.
Right, so like, putting it on the ballot would be.
Well, we're not gonna stay for this portion of the meeting. I gotta go get groceries. I mean, the fun never stops. If that were to pass the House, that would be because we still haven't. Right. 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 Yeah.
No, I won't. No,
They'll go forth, they're gonna pass it. We are doing it, yeah. Yeah, I think we have. No, what I'd like to do is have, just like, let's, yes, and we'll schedule a date, yeah. So like, yeah. I thought too. And I said
All right, we will call to order the May 19th meeting of City Council. If you're able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. We'll now pause for a moment of silence. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Bullock?
Here.
Councilmember Evans? Councilmember Keppel?
Here.
Councilmember Marks? Councilmember Steiner?
Here.
Councilmember Strebig?
Here.
Reading and disposal of the minutes of the regular meeting of council held May 5th, 2025.
Move to approve without the necessity of a reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 1, report from Housing, Planning, and Development Committee regarding meeting held May 12th, 2025.
Vice President Baker.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, the Housing Planning and Development Committee met on May 12th to receive an update from Assistant Planning Director David Boss regarding the ongoing zoning refresh project that seeks to provide a comprehensive revision of the city's zoning code. The zoning refresh project kicked off in August 2024 and just achieved a major touchstone with the release of its preliminary recommendations. Mr. Boss reviewed the preliminary recommendations in committee and elaborated on the major themes of all the recommendations, which are economic development, housing, community wellness, and mobility. Increasing density will be a major focus of the revision, as will streamlining processes and incentivizing changes, among others. Council members had the opportunity to weigh in, ask questions, and provide feedback. Mr. Boss requested that additional feedback be submitted to him right away so the project can stay on track. Mr. Boss will provide follow-up presentations to council as the project progresses. Ultimately, a large packet of legislation to enact the final recommendations will be submitted to council. The goal is to make sure that council is well prepared and informed every step of the way leading to that point. Motion to receive and file that oral communication.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 2, report from Public Safety Committee meeting held today, May 19th, 2025.
Councilmember Strebig.
Yes, the committee met tonight to discuss the recommended updates to the ordinance for the shelter's trap, neuter, and return program. And we had a good discussion with Carol Lawson, Emily Christique, and Megan Galata from Claus and Elswab, who gave us some information on the recommendations from the law department and to not overdo and make it overburdensome for people to participate in this program. So the law department's going to meet with Elswab and kind of hash out some of these details, and then we will bring it back to committee.
Move to receive and file that oral report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? I'll thank the folks from the community cats who showed up, as well as our law department, for getting that ordinance put together, so we have something to edit together, so appreciate that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 3, communication from President Keppel announcing council community conversations.
Dear colleagues, continuing a tradition started last year, I am pleased to announce that council will be getting out into the community this summer for a series of community conversations. One of these town hall-style meetings is scheduled to be held in each of the city's 4 wards. The goal of our community conversations is to meet residents in their familiar neighborhood spaces and foster the type of open dialogue that can be difficult to achieve within the formal setting of a council meeting. All members of the community are invited to come and connect with their council members, ask questions, meet their neighbors, and share their ideas and concerns. The community conversations are scheduled as follows. Residents may identify their ward on the Lakewood City Council webpage of the city website. Thank you, colleagues, for your enthusiastic support of this idea, and to our generous hosts for opening their doors to council and the public. I look forward to chatting with our neighbors this summer. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded, and I'd like to thank all of our ward colleagues for helping to schedule them this year, as well as our council clerks. Last year was our first year doing this, and it was kind of a heavy lift to get them all scheduled, and so it was nice this year to spread that labor around a little bit and try out some new places where we can meet with folks. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 4, communication from Councilmember Strebig regarding ordinance to enact trap, neuter, return guidelines and other updates to the code regarding animals.
Councilmember Strebig.
Dear colleagues, trap, neuter, return programs are endorsed by many respected animal welfare organizations as a humane and effective method of managing cat populations. Over the past several years, the Lakewood Animal Safety and Welfare Advisory Board and its partners have successfully executed a small-scale pilot TNR program under the supervision of Animal Shelter Supervisor Crumley and the authority of Mayor George. The following legislation was drafted in response to input from LSWAB regarding their experiences managing their TNR pilot program and includes the specifics, guidance, and protections that that program of this nature requires. It also makes other minor updates recommended by LSWAB and discussed in the Public Safety Committee. I look forward to a thoughtful discussion on this topic and on outcomes and balances the needs of all parties. Sincerely, me.
Thank you. Move to receive and file that communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. I'll note there is an e-comment on both the communication and the ordinance in support of TNR. Although I will note, it does say something about euthanizing cats after 2 days, which I don't think is accurate. We retain cats until they're adopted out unless they're feral. But all right, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 5, ordinance 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately, updating various sections of Chapter 505, Animals and Fowl of the Lakewood Codified Ordinances, and creating regulations for trap, neuter, spay, and release of community cats within the city of Lakewood.
And remind me, we decided we're doing both, or we're doing LaSwab first? Just joint. Okay. So I'll move to refer to Lakewood Animal Safety, Welfare, and Advisory Board and Public Safety Committee.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 6, communication from Public Works Director Gordon regarding Cuyahoga County Solid Waste Management Plan update.
Director Gordon.
Thank you. Dear President Keppel and members of City Council, in accordance with the Ohio Revised Code, Sections 3734.53, 54, and 55, the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste Management District Policy Committee prepared and adopted a final draft of the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste Management Plan update. Please find attached a resolution that, if adopted, would ratify the update to the plan for the years 2026 through 2040. The Cuyahoga County Solid Waste Management District requires the City of Lakewood's and other Cuyahoga County municipalities' approval of the update. Lakewood, as a city in Cuyahoga County, is a member of the county's Solid Waste Management District, which is a product of the Ohio Revised Code and is overseen by a board of county officials. The Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District is responsible for implementing the plan update, which contains programs and services that support waste reduction and recycling. All the existing programs and services offered by the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste District will continue with ratification of the plan update, while some new programs will be initiated. I request that City Council pass the attached resolution or refer to the necessary appropriate committee for review. Please let me know if you have any further questions.
Thank you. I'm going to suggest the resolution that comes after this, that we refer to Public Works and Sustainability, and I'm going to ask the chair, would you like the communication with it?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I'll move to refer the communication to Public Works and Sustainability.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Madam President?
Vice President Baker and then Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Director Gordon. And it looks like it happens like once every 15 years, so I assume you don't have direct experience with it, but would someone from the county be willing to come to a committee hearing to talk to us about plan updates, or would that be more of an update from the Public Works Department?
That's the plan.
Having the county come?
Correct.
Excellent, thank you.
Be nice to take one thing off your plate. All right, Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Madam President. So Councilman Baker kind of stole the words out of my mouth, which is fine. I do my best to read the various reports from our county entities. There's the Solid Waste District, there's the Soil and Water Conservation District, and others too that are partners. And I think the City of Lakewood's had a pretty effective partnership over the years with them. So I agree that it would be good to have this periodic check-in, hear the latest from them, and also just spend a little time focusing on understanding the city's operations and our current thinking. I know, for example, over the years, recycling tonnage has gone up or down depending on market prices and the like. And so I think it's just a chance for us to spend some time thoughtfully getting up to date on those matters. And one question, Mr. Gordon, so the plan updates were authored by the county. What's being requested is that the city simply approve, but not really amend. So review and approve or reject the plan, although rejecting would lead to operational problems. But it's not our plan, it's not our amendments. Is that accurate?
That's correct. So the Solid Waste Management District needs the resolutions to be passed by the Cuyahoga County municipalities. I think the date is in April, and understanding our previous, or excuse me, in August, and understanding our previous history of August, hence why I'm here. So they need the resolution to be passed by the Cuyahoga County municipalities that are included within the Solid Waste District and things of that nature.
Any further discussion on the communication? Hearing none, on the motion to refer to Public Works and Sustainability, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 7, Resolution 2025-22, a resolution adopting the solid waste management plan for the Cuyahoga County Solid Waste Management District.
Move to refer to Public Works and Sustainability.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 8, communication from Building Commissioner Parmalee regarding addition to Lakewood Codified Ordinance 1775.
Commissioner Parmalee.
Hey, Chief. Madam President, members of council. Sorry, I got a throat's killing me. It's allergies. Requesting a revision to Lakewood Codified Ordinance 1775, specifically the addition of LCO 1775.03, front yard plantings. The purpose of this ordinance is to observe the sensitivity of pollinators and property owners. This ordinance would enable private property owners to plant natural landscaping, gardens, wildflowers, and ornamental plants in the front yards, yet give the city ability to enforce and maintain vehicular and pedestrian sightlines. Interior and corner lot sightlines are described in the attached proposed ordinance, along with visual representation of the proposed sightlines. I appreciate your consideration in modifying Ordinance 1775.
Thank you. We do housing planning and development. Would you like the communication? Yes. Okay, so I'll move to refer the communication to housing planning and development.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? Councilman Bullock.
Councilman Bullock, is your mic on? I can barely hear you.
Okay, thanks. As you recall, first of all, thank you, Madam President. Mr. Parmalee, thanks for the proposal and for working steadily on this issue. As you may recall, you and I corresponded about 6 months ago about my desire to be responsive to some residents who had contacted me, or the issues come up from time to time. And so I'm glad that you've put pen to paper and proposed something. You know, I have some thoughts in draft form. I'll have to compare to what you've got here, so I look forward to the committee discussion. But I know that your team is probably the lead, or if you're the lead, if you're not the only enforcement for this set of rules. And I recall that, you know, you made the valid point that clarity is better than ambiguity. for all of these things, both for the homeowner so that they know what they can do, and then for you at the city enforcement level so you know how to fairly, make the call. So,
Agreed.
so appreciate you getting this up and running. But I also do think, there's growing interest and there's probably an evolved understanding today compared to generations ago whenever the code section was written about what a front yard should look like. So we
It's a
probably
bit
have,
dated. Yeah.
yeah, we probably have some stuff to talk about. Thanks.
And that visual representation that's included too, it's going to help. I mean, instead of reading code language, I mean, we'll have something to reference visually too, so.
Thank you. Thank you. So the idea here is that we're allowing more diversity in front yard plantings, is that generally, but still maintaining sightlines for if you're pulling out around the corner and you can't see over the giant bamboo or whatever?
Spot on.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Any further discussion? Okay. We do have some folks, we do have some e-comments on the ordinance, so we'll get to the ordinance first here. So let's finish the motion to refer the communication to Housing Planning and Development. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 9, Ordinance 18, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately to amend Chapter 1775, Weeds, of the Codified Ordinance of the City of Lakewood for the purpose of establishing regulations for front yard plantings.
Move to refer to Housing Planning and Development.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? We had most of that on the communication. We do have some e-comments on the ordinance. Okay. They're showing up in, we're having some trouble with the iPad version of that. But council members, you should have received the e-comments. And we do have some folks signed in to speak on this. So I will call you up when I call your name. Thank you, Commissioner Parmalee. When you come on up, the mic is on. You'll have 5 minutes. Address the chair, which is me. And please avoid personalities. And you'll state your name and address for the record. Okay, so the first one is Jim Metrison. Okay, sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Linda Matrison, here with my husband Jim. We reside at 16615 Hilliard Road. Last year, we became aware that our yard had become overwhelmed with invasive plants and vines, and it was very difficult to maintain, and we felt unsightly. We consulted an organization called Webbed Foot Designs, with a lead designer, Ray Stewart, who is an expert in ecological designs, emphasizing native plants. And of course, we were aware of the endangered pollinators. And so we contracted with Mr. Stewart, who got a team out, removed our lawn and our hedges using absolutely no chemicals, and put in what is called a bee lawn. And it is designed, this is our first year, so we don't know exactly what it will look like as it progresses, because it is designed to have flowering clovers and different things throughout the season. And it is designed to grow somewhere in the no higher than about a foot. And we consulted with Mr. Stewart because we realized some of the things seem to be growing taller. He suggested using a trimmer so that we would not mow down the things that had not yet bloomed. We obtained a trimmer, we're doing that, but we had received a citation saying that if we did not mow it down to like 3 inches by tomorrow morning, they were going to come and mow it down. So we sent letters to the members here regarding this. We're very concerned. We're very happy that you are addressing this issue at this time, but we're really worried that somebody is going to come out and mow our lawn tomorrow morning.
Right now it's scheduled, Mike Riley's scheduled to come out tomorrow morning and cut it down to 3 inches, also adding a $200 fine to that, okay? And I mean, realistically, we took a walk we take a walk every morning through Lakewood, we do. You may see us, you may see the beard walking around our, you may have seen us in the car over these years. It's been about 30 years we've been doing that. And honestly, I counted 70 houses that were in violation of these very things. And also what I want to point out is, in your list of plants, many of those plants are actually native plants to Ohio. And they were actually banned to be planted in the state of Ohio here. What I'm trying to say is we're trying to do the right thing,
Right.
okay?
And honestly, we do not feel that our lawn in any way, even when it had grown a little higher, presented any visibility issues at all. We actually live next door to a neighbor, and we get along very well with our neighbor. We don't want to get him in trouble, but his bushes make it very hard for us to pull out of our driveway. We have to stop and honk and look, and so the fact that we were violated was quite shocking to us, because it doesn't present a
And I guess the difficult thing is, I guess Jake doesn't have a lawn, so he's allowed to have a forest in his front. Is that true? I don't know.
But
you know. But I'll be
in any
honest,
way.
everything's native in there, because his
Yeah.
ex-wife actually planted it as a native growing forest in their front yard. So I guess
So
this is also an issue of fairness.
Yeah, but I guess our question is, how do we, what
do we do
happens
tomorrow
tomorrow morning? Do we sit out on our lawn and prevent them from coming and mowing it, or how is that going to be handled?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward, and I think that this is precisely the type of issue that this ordinance is intending to address. Commissioner Parmley, I hate to put you on the spot, but are we considering kind of pausing in this type, or what are your thoughts around that?
So getting put on the spot is my job. I've never heard from these folks. I am the building commissioner. I run the department. We don't issue citations. We issue correction notices. We don't cite people to cut their grass at 3 inches because you'd scalp it and kill everybody's lawn. In the high grass and weeds ordinance, anything exceeding 6 inches, we all drive around the city and see these overgrown yards. This ordinance is to help kind of curb that, give folks the ability to do what they want on private property. Mr. Riley does not go out and cut grass. We have our Public Works Department go out and do that. Wish the call would have came across my desk, because I can stop this from happening tomorrow. Your yard technically is out of compliance because the ordinance hasn't passed yet. I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you in the morning. I get to the office about 6:45 every day. So if that's something you'd like to talk through, I'd be more than happy to do that with you. And like I said, this ordinance is going to help that. The ordinance does state there is setbacks off the public right-of-way, which is part of it. So we don't have bushes hanging over sidewalks, joggers, kids on bikes, people getting caught by blackberry bushes. I have a couple of those on my street. Keep it tasteful, keep it short. That's the intent of the ordinance. Again, like Councilman Bullock stated, we've talked about this in the past. It took us a minute to get there. Being sensitive to the folks that like having natural grass yards, like myself, with some bushes out front. If there's visibility issues with your neighbor, I'd like to hear about it. That's something we can corral too, because even if you have bushes in the front yard, they can't exceed 3 foot for that very reason. So I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to have thank you for that. I'd like to have a conversation with you tomorrow morning. 216-529-6295 is my extension. I don't hide anywhere. My picture, as well as my staff pictures, are online with our contact numbers and emails for this very reason.
That was not on the notice, though, that was on our.
And it's called a violation, actually.
You guys, the public comment isn't really meant to go back and forth. I was just trying to help solve the problem.
So again, if these folks would want some resolution, I'd be glad to do that. It's just kind of a bummer it's the final hour.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So we'll, thank you for being willing to follow up on that. Thank you for that. And I think that's something to be thinking about too, is this is, this body, was it last year or 2 years ago where we amended native plantings also to allow more more of the native milkweed and native species also. So the ideas on this are evolving. This is where we have these laws on the books, and our staff has to go out and enforce, the laws that we have on the books until we change the laws on the books. So this is the process of changing the laws on the books, and then they can enforce the new laws on the books. So we're kind of caught right now in this 11th hour moment. So we'll try to work together and figure that out, I think, right? Okay. So we also have, so yes, we have some more folks trying to speak to you.
Just real briefly.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if my mic is working. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Madam President. So, Mr. Tristan, thank you for the communication about a couple of things, including this last one. And I would just say, I think what you're hearing from Mr. Parmalee is he is willing to be responsive. In general, the city doesn't want to mow grass. The notices tend to be sharp, attention-getting, so that we get the attention of people, but we're not the best or lowest cost grass mowing service. So if we have a responsible property owner, then we'll typically engage in a conversation. Obviously, you are both responsible property owners. You're here, so I think I'm optimistic you will be able to come to an agreement. I would also say you're probably on the growing edge, as the council president just explained. The fact that you're doing this new practice, which kind of falls in between. It falls in the gray area, and just the way that laws and enforcement work, it's better. It flows more smoothly with clear rules, and so that's what we're trying to do. So thank you for your dialogue, and more communication is always better. Thanks.
Well said. Okay, so next up we have Matt Herberger.
Good evening, Matt Herberger, 1448 Bunce Road. I apologize, I'll be brief. I just read about this ordinance about like an hour ago, and it's unclear to me what exactly it's trying to accomplish and what it's adding to existing ordinances, and what is new. I guess maybe I'll try to pull Mr. Parmalee aside to see what the existing ordinance is. But the way I looked at it, it said it was a new section, Section 3, where there was going to be a 4-foot setback from the right-of-way. And I assume that applied, and I think it had a limitation of 5 inches growth or something. It seems overly restrictive, but I'm not sure if it just reflects the list of plants that you put in the ordinance, or if it reflects all plants. It would impact me depending on how that ordinance passed. I would be curious about existing plantings and how they would be affected. I'm also curious why that would be an emergency measure as well. Seems a little odd. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think some of those questions, since this is going to committee, we'll have more dialogue about all those different details of it. And so for those who were here last week and for those who were not here last week, it's a good reminder for me to explain some of the process that happens up here. Sometimes we go through it. We're here every Monday, and so sometimes we take for granted that people understand what's happening. And so I'll just explain a little bit. When we get new legislation introduced, which is what's happening tonight at a full council meeting, typically that legislation is then referred to committee, as you heard me refer to Housing Planning and Development Committee, which will be scheduled. We'll go into all the into the weeds, so to speak, with Commissioner Parmalee about the specifics of the ordinance, and have a chance to, discuss these different aspects and what the considerations are and all these different things. And then at some point that would, well, it may or may not, but typically it gets referred back to full council then for an up or down vote. So any new ordinance like that is typically would have 3 readings. So first reading is tonight, then it goes to committee for another reading. It may or may not spend more than one meeting in committee. Then it comes back to a full council meeting for the vote. So, and then in terms of the emergency language, in that again doesn't mean that we're passing it, that we're speeding up the process of passing it. Like that committee meeting isn't even scheduled yet. It means that once it's passed, it would go into effect as soon as the mayor and I sign it, rather than 40 days from the signature. And the reason for, I would imagine, for this, in this particular case, for the emergency language, and when we get into committee, we can discuss that too, and that could always come out, but is because things are growing right now. So if we pass it now, then like the couple that we just had here wouldn't have to cut down their lawn potentially, or wouldn't be in violation or be concerned about getting a citation. But that's my guess, but we'll find out more in committee. So just a little aside on process, because I know we go through it all the time, but before I was on council, I would probably not have understood all that. So, okay, so that's process. Next up,
Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Mayor George.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So this only impacts property owners that want to have natural landscapes. So that's not a property owner who has flowers or shrubs or bushes, like I'm assuming you do, Mr. Herber. It's only those that have these natural landscapes. It's providing an opportunity for more of those throughout our community. So I just wanted to clarify that you would likely not be impacted unless you have a natural landscape yard today.
Thank you, Mayor George. All right, so next up we have Amy Herberger. Did you still want to speak? Okay, all right. Thank you. That's everybody who have signed in to speak on this topic. And we're still on discussion of the ordinance, correct? We've not voted to, yeah. Okay, so on the, any further discussion on the motion to refer this ordinance to Housing, Planning, and Development? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye, and that motion passes.
Item 10, communication from Building Commissioner Parmalee regarding revisions to LCO 130675.
Welcome back, Commissioner Parmalee.
Hello, Madam President, members of council. If I could just comment, there is no emergency with the past ordinance, and it does not affect the trees that have been there for 100 years or the perimeter bushes that have always been there. We have bits of the ordinance. This is for folks that want to do tomato gardens in their front yard, grow some corn, wildflowers, et cetera, et cetera. So I just wanted to air that out. I'm requesting a correction to previously revised ordinance 130675 that was passed July 15th of 2024. In the ordinance change, a request was made to change the engineer report time frame from every 3 years to every 5. It was brought to my attention that the language was changed in the ordinance except for the very first line of the ordinance. All occupiable structures 30 years and older and 4 stories or more in height shall every 3 years have the exterior facade inspected. I'm requesting council adopt the change to correct the oversight in 130675. So we changed that July of last year to read 5. I was actually on the phone with somebody from Isaac Lewin's office, an engineering firm, that pointed out that, yes, I am human and I made a mistake, so.
Thanks. Well, you finally made one, so
Yeah.
we have it on record now, so thank you. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Parmalee. I'm going to move to receive and file the communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? It's pretty much just a clerical cleanup, something we've already done, so. All right, on the motion to receive and file, all those in favor? Aye, and that motion passes.
Item 11, Ordinance 19, 2025, an ordinance to take effect immediately, amending Section 130675, Structural Engineer Report requirement of the Lakewood Codified Ordinances.
I'm going to first move to suspend the rules I need one motion for that, right? To suspend the rules to adopt on first reading.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? So continuing my education series, so this is the opposite of what I said before, so I am now moving to suspend the rules so that we can pass it on first reading, because this is actually not really changing the ordinance except clarifying a typo, essentially. So, all right, so on the motion to suspend the rules, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes. And then now I'll move to adopt.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 12, communication from Assistant Planning Director Boss regarding Winterhurst Locker Room renovation project.
Dr. Byington, is this?
Thank you, President Keppel and members of council. Per Lakewood Codified Ordinances, Section 111.14, this communication serves to notify council of the city's formal acceptance of capital improvement funding in the amount of $735,000 with no match required, appropriated by the state legislature in 2024 and administered by the Ohio Department of Natural Resources for the Winterhurst Locker Room renovation project. As originally requested, this state grant acts as a key gap filler to ensure that the necessary funding is aligned to cover the total implementation budget for the project, including contingency. Preparatory actions include a short operational shutdown to accommodate necessary interior demolition, which has already begun at Winterhurst, as construction is set to begin within the coming month. While the project is not expected to be complete until 2026, both rinks will be back up and running in June to allow programming to continue concurrently with the renovation work. Thank you.
Move to receive and file the communication.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion? And thank you, and thank Assistant Director Boss for the continuing work on Winterhurst and maintaining the asset for our community and getting some money. All right, any further discussion?
Yes.
Vice President Baker.
Thank you, President Keppel. I'd like to also say thank you. I know these state grants are competitive and nice to bring the money to Lakewood. One thing it would be nice, I know I've followed on some of the ABR agendas to see some of the plans for the work. I think it would be nice to have soon a communication to council to kind of go over in a more global pattern, you know, the work that's being done, highlight it, where we're at today, where we're going to be in 2026. It's a really big investment we're making as a city, and we're getting outside funds to help do it, but I think it would be good to get visibility at the council level on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. On the motion to receive and file, all those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes.
Item 13, liquor permit notice regarding Sauce Pub and Pizzeria.
Director Vargo, I don't think we have this yet. Is that correct?
That's correct, Madam President. If we can defer that one.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
We'll move to defer.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Discussion. Deferring, for those following along, just means that it stays on the docket so that we can address it when we have the report. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And that motion passes.
Item 14, liquor permit notice regarding One Star Bar.
Councilmember Strubig. I think this is, oh no, yes, this is in your ward, I believe. We have this one. So I don't believe that the report showed any statutory reason to object. It's our custom to have the ward council member confirm that.
Yeah, no reason to object.
Okay. So I will move to file without objection.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. And that motion passes. All right, we're at the end of our regular agenda. Some folks signed in for public comment. We do have quite a few e-comments, 26 e-comments. So those do get, for anyone who uses e-comment or has wondered, those do get filed in the minutes and recorded, just as if you spoke here at City Council. And council members also get them emailed to them. So they do come to us. Okay. All right, so when I call your name, same rules as I said before. Come up to the mic, microphone's already on, so you can just begin speaking. You'll have up to 5 minutes. You address the chair. Please avoid personalities, meaning don't attack anyone in particular. And now, first up is James. I'm sorry, James, I can't read your last name. Mekredink? Meerdink, sorry. Thank you. Please correct me, and then name and address, and then you have 5 minutes.
Great. My name is James Meerdink. I'm at 1281 Bunce Road. So hello, Council, Chair. I live on Bunce Road between Merle and Clifton. I'm here tonight to speak in support of the Bunce Road project, including the shared use path, as well as the city's overall efforts to make Lakewood a safe and friendly place to walk and bike. My wife and I moved to Lakewood with very small kids. We have twins. They were toddlers at the time. And the ability to get places without a car and the fact that kids walk to school here, both were major reasons why we chose this community. So I view the project and the shared use path really as a no-brainer. Narrowing the street will bring down speeds on our road and will result in some drivers hopefully choosing other north-south routes and not speeding down our street. So it's all good on that front for me. And the path itself is a double-wide sidewalk that the city will maintain. Curb bump outs and better crosswalks, we can use both of those, especially at the busy intersection of near Merle Bunce Park and Giant Eagle. So my kids are 10 years old now. They're at that stage where they want to go out and explore on their own. They bike to their friends' houses. They bike to school sometimes. Tonight, they actually biked over to Garfield next door for soccer practice. So they can and do ride on the sidewalk, but as they get older, I like the idea of them having another option and a wider sidewalk to bike on. That's an actually appropriate place for them to do it. Also, all the other facilities that I know are going to be part of the plan down the road, I think that's all very positive. Obviously, crossing Clifton is still an obstacle, and I look for that to be addressed in future work. I know some of my neighbors have voiced concerns over losing trees, and I definitely sympathize with that. There also seemed to be some confusion about why trees had to go, with some falsely claiming they had to go to make way for the path, which I don't think is the case. I think a lot of that's been cleared up with this letter that was sent out to people on Bunce Road, and I thought it was very nicely done, so thank you for that. So as far as the trees, I do hope the city will make all reasonable efforts to save mature trees, as we don't have enough of them, and they really add character to our neighborhood. Anyway, to summarize, I fully support the shared use path and the other walking and biking friendly changes proposed as part of the Bunce Road project. I'd ask council, mayor, agencies, everyone to stay the course when it comes to making this city safer and on enhancing Lakewood's unique walkability and bikeability. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Lucinda Cave.
Madam Chair and council members, I'm Lucinda Cave, and I live at 1331 West Clifton Boulevard. I moved to Lakewood. One of the big reasons was because it was more bike-friendly than the neighborhood where I currently lived in Cleveland. I'm a nurse, and the health of our city is also very important to me. Physical activity, which includes active transportation, like biking and walking, lowers our risk of heart disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, dementia, depression, and many cancers. It improves all our quality of life, sleep, proper weight maintenance, bone health, and physical functioning. In addition, it helps to prevent falls, especially for older people. We want all of this for all of our Lakewood residents, and especially our youth who may be taking the Bunce Road pathway to school. We do need to have a north-south route. I noticed immediately when I moved to Lakewood, we've got a wonderful route on Lake Road, and then a fairly good one on Madison, but then no really good one going north-south. Bunce is the best road for this in that there are other infrastructure projects that are going on at the same time, and it does make sense to rebuild when the other projects are taking place. So one concern that I have heard is that there will be a steady stream of cyclists blocking the entrance and exits for people trying to get out of their driveways. Even on a good day, I haven't noticed that on Lake, one of our best roads with our best bike infrastructure. People don't go in huge crowds. I don't think that will happen on Bunce if the project is allowed to continue. So please allow the Bunce Road reconstruction project to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Kim McDonald.
Good evening. First of all, I want to say that I failed totally, and I told my husband I would sign him up, and I forgot to do that. So if possible, would you put him on the list? It's Tim McDonald. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Kim McDonald, 1460 Bunce Road, in opposition to the path. As you've heard me speak before about the path, I'm hearing so much about safety for pedestrians and cyclists, and I'm getting really confused as to many things that have been said as far as the pedestrian safety, which is my main concern, which is why I chose the second choice for this whole path. I felt that mixing cyclists and pedestrians in together, there's the disparity of speed, and I feel that's dangerous for the pedestrians. So far, a lot of the arguments that I've heard for safety, it relates to the cyclists, not to the pedestrians, and that's one thing that really troubles me. Supposedly this path would be safer for the elderly walking. Well, I don't think they said elderly, but for older citizens walking, and for people with assistive devices and children. But mixing cycles and there is a hill, the speed can be increased when the people are coming on their bikes, and scooters, e-scooters, e-bikes, the speeds can get high, and I think it's a bad mixture. Let me just backtrack for a minute. We did get the letter from the city today, and I'd like to point out that it gave a timeline of all the public engagement, but I would like to point out that so many of us who live on Bunce felt really betrayed by our city, that we got a letter announcing this project. It said bike lanes. Never in a million years did people think there would be the chance of a multimodal path 40 feet and 4 inches in front of our home is where this path would be, where our sidewalk is, but increasing it to a multimodal path, I think it was really not dishonest exactly, but it was sneaky that the letter announcing this project didn't say we have a couple plans that we're looking into. We were taking citizen comments, what do you think about it? But it just feels like really that our comments don't matter, our opinions don't matter. It feels like it's just like window dressing. Okay, you got a letter, there were signs at the corners, you had a month to react. Well, I'm sorry, I was guilty. I was working in my yard. I didn't get washed up and go to the meeting. I thought they're just doing the street over and putting bike lanes, which would have been fabulous. I mean, it's surprising to me how many people actually ride their bikes up the street on Bunce. I certainly wouldn't. I go on quieter streets, but I think that's why a lot of people are mad, and people still, hopefully they're going to read the letter, because people still do not have an understanding about this path, what it means for a path in front of your own home, what it means for all the people on the east side of the street. They're losing 3.5 feet of the green space, which is bringing the heavy, heavy traffic closer to their home. I mean, when we moved in there in like the late 70s, this was not that busy of a street. When they put the gas station in, they said they did a virtual study and there would not be more traffic than when it was a grocery store. I'm sorry, a 16-pump gas station has created an awful lot of traffic. It's, you know, we love our home, we love our neighbors. People say, well, why don't you move? Well, you know what the real estate is like in Lakewood. Let's find a quiet street where our house is paid for. We can't afford to move. But I'm sorry, I'm throwing a lot of things in there that I really didn't mean to say. I'm just speaking from my emotion because I really feel betrayed. I feel like, you know, get the facts out. Don't hide the fact that you have two plans here.
Thank you, Kim. All right, next up is Vera Perez.
Hi, I'm Vera Perez, and I'm at 1497 Bunce Road. I oppose the Bunce Road multi-use path. It's just not the right spot in Lakewood to have a multi-use path. When I think of a multi-use path, I think of the Metro Parks, great place to have one. I think of, you know, the Lakewood Park, great place to have one, where there's, you know, scenery that you can just bike continuously without intersections. That's the type of place a multi-use path should go. There's just too many intersections on Bunce Road and driveways. And I also got the mailer that came out, and I understand that there was a multi-use path put on Detroit Road right by around the corner going into Rocky River. Perfect spot. You got the Metro Parks right there. I just don't understand what makes you think people will use the Bunce Road path. People from the east side are going to, oh, let's go bike riding. Let's drive over to Bunce Road and go up and down, north and south. Where are they going to? Clifton? It's not like it's taking you right into Lakewood Park. So I just don't understand why there. And if you're looking to get those complete streets with the bike for bikers, I'm all for that. In fact, you have them on Madison, you have them on Detroit, I hear on Lake, and that's wonderful. And if you need to take a little bit of the tree lawn to create a bike path going north, along with the traffic that goes north and then going south on the other side, then widen the street, that's fine. Put the bike lanes in. But putting in a path is just changing the landscape of the neighborhood. And you want to keep that historical neighborhood sidewalks. I think that's important for the people that do walk. There's a lot of walkers. In fact, Lakewood is the walkable city. Everybody knows Lakewood. They love Lakewood because you can walk everywhere. So we need those sidewalks for those walkers. And in fact, we've gotten that title of a walkable city without a multi-use path. We don't need that to be the walkable city. We already have that title. So I just hope you rethink of this path. You know, it should be at, like I said, in the metro parks, near, you know, the lake, the ocean, you know, where people can continuously ride. And let me see, what else am I missing here? Okay. So anyways, I just hope you rethink. I'm normally not a speaker, so I just want you to really think about that. It just is not the right spot. Thank you.
All right, next is Robert Organ.
Good evening. Did you all hear the news last week? No? I'm gonna take that as a no. So the reboot of my favorite show, King of the Hill, is coming back. So we need to wrap this up before that comes back so I can go watch it. All right? So I'm here to talk about Complete Streets as a whole, not just the Bunce Path, because Complete Streets as a city is much more important to me than one single path. But Bunce being the next one up for repaving, I don't want to have to wait 20 or 25 years, however long it is until Bunce Road is repaved to have some kind of bicycle infrastructure on Bunce. So please push that along, continue to do all the things that you're doing right now. That said, I am a huge map nerd. I went to the Cleveland Public Library. They have an entire floor dedicated to maps. How awesome is that? I went and I found some maps from 1950s Cleveland, 1940s Cleveland, 1930s Cleveland, and I just took the time to count all of the homes that were in the place that I-90 currently sits. So just between roughly Triscuit and Riverside / Rocky River Drive, there were 490 homes that were destroyed to make way for the highway. 160 or more of those were in Lakewood. There are entire streets that no longer exist. That was to make way for a highway that we now know was destructive and probably not the best idea for the communities surrounding it. It pushes all the negative externalities of car-first infrastructure onto the surrounding neighborhoods, things like air pollution, noise pollution, lower property values, all those types of things. And that's just to make way for one purpose, and that's cars. And I think it's really wild that people are opposing a path and on a larger scale, complete streets, because they think it might affect their neighborhood, their home, whatever. Something that would reduce emissions, reduce noise, reduce air pollution, increase the property value for the surrounding area. But we live in a society where most of these people are driving, they're using that highway and forcing all of the people that live nearby to deal with those negative externalities. One person that comes to mind comes here quite a bit to comment against the Bunce Road path, and he works in Solon. He has to get on the highway and drive to Solon every day. I don't understand how somebody can be so in favor of something that is destructive to the surrounding neighborhoods, but the bike path is somehow, not good. It would be so great if we could just have something that doesn't prioritize cars, that puts cars and people and bikes on an equal level. So I'm wholly in favor of the Bunce Road path. I am wholly in favor of the complete streets. We need to push this along quickly. I've got King of the Hill to watch. And just to respond to the previous couple of comments, the Bunce Road path makes sense because it gets us to places like the grocery store and the high school. It's not a recreational thing where we can just drive our bikes to the metro parks or something like that and ride. We're doing this for transportation. So everybody, I know that's in your minds. I know you're aware of that, but I just want to remind everybody that that's why we're fighting for this. So thank you. I hope you all have a great night. And once King of the Hill is out, we'll talk about it. I'll remind you of how great that show is. Bye.
Thank you. All right. Susan Obagi, I'm sorry, I know you came before. Go on. And I know you corrected me before, so correct me again.
Okay. Like I said, I grew up my whole life with people not knowing how to say it. It's okay if we're having a Hungarian name, that's what I get. So, yeah, it's a Obagi, like police badge, and then Galant. So, anyway, so I mean, I guess just to kind of reiterate a little, I sent in like an e-comment yesterday, and I guess just to kind of reiterate on it, I was just suggesting if it really cannot be avoided to take the trees, why not use the money that's going to be used to cut them down, instead use it to relocate them? There are tree services now where I've seen it, where they actually have this big scooper that picks up the trees right out of the ground and then places it right in another area that's dug up for that tree. And so if they have to be removed, at least, you know, maybe give the people that live on the street the option, if they want it, to have it put in the actual lawn in front of their house. And that right there would take care of the other issue that, you know, people were talking about with the ordinance with the plant life. If you get a tree there, then that takes care of that. But I'm just, you know, thinking something, you know, because I just hate to see these trees go, but if they could just be moved over, you know, for people who would want them in their front yard, or, you know, if you run out of yards, I mean, you have the various parks in Lakewood, we have the different school campuses where a tree could go, you know, anything, you know, so that they don't have to be cut down. But, you know, so I mean, if there's, you know, road work that needs to be done and it's not avoidable, whether there's a path there or not, that is my suggestion, you know, so at least it would be better than just getting rid of them. And especially if we're, you know, giving out trees to people, it just kind of, I don't know, to me, it's almost contradicting. You're giving out trees, but then at the same time, you're cutting down trees. It just, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm just saying it just, I'm trying to balance that out, and it's not balancing very well in my mind. But the other thing is, too, where I'm concerned with Bunce is because it's such a narrow street to begin with. I'm just concerned that, you know, putting this path in there might make it worse. I mean, yeah, I mean, you're taking some of the tree lawn, but at the same time, you know, it's like, it's not a big street to begin with, and you have so much massive traffic. If it was another street, or at least it was a wider street and you had traffic, at least there'd be more room to work with. I just don't see that being a safe spot for it. You know, I mean, like I said, I you know, when I have a bike, I like riding it too, so I'm not against a bike trail. I mean, I like using bike trails when I can too. I think they're very important. But I just think maybe a wider street would be a safer option. You know, but even then, just having it in front of someone's home, I'm concerned could cause more. I mean, like, I think there are projects in other places where you'll see, like, I don't know what they call them, but like these mounds, I guess, where they have like between where the homes are and where the paths are, that some cities will put in, so it's separated from the homes and it's not as much of an option. But I know we don't really have room to do that. But I'm just, if there's just like a safer option, I just don't see that being a very safe option. I think in some ways it'll cause more accidents than it will prevent them. So, like, that's all I really wanted to say about it.
All right, Matt Herberger. Did you want to go again for? Yep.
Good evening, Matt Herberger, 1448 Bunce Road. I've got something prepared, but real quick, if you guys want a good path, any cyclists, north-south, Grace, Clarence, Manor Park, Marlowe, and no infrastructure is required. I took my daughters down there when they were young, right on the street, no problem. No cars coming. Perfect north-south intersection for any cyclist. You don't need to put in a massive, grandiose project. I'm here to speak to what I see as a lack of public input in the city's justification for a multimodal path plan for Bunce Road. While the city of Lakewood has made claims recently about strong public engagement in the Bunce Road rehab project, a closer examination reveals that the process fell short of meeting the standards for meaningful, inclusive, public participation. The timeline and methods employed raised concerns about whether the feedback collected genuinely shaped the finals of design and whether the broader public was sufficiently aware, informed, or empowered to participate. 1, insufficient notification and outreach scope. The city states that letters were mailed and yard signs were placed on April 25th, 2024, less than 2 weeks before the public meeting on May 7th. This narrow window limited the ability of residents to receive the notice, absorb information, discuss alternatives, and prepare meaningful feedback, since the notice was unclear to the extent of the bike path. Furthermore, placing signs only along Bunce Road and at City Hall likely missed a significant portion of stakeholders who regularly use Bunce Road but do not reside directly on it. It is abundantly clear that broader outreach, including mail, wider radius of Lakewood residents, digital advertising, community presentations, and multi-language materials would have increased awareness and engagement. 2, one public meeting is not sufficient. A single public meeting does not equate to robust civic engagement. Residents were presented with 2 plans at one event. Other design alternatives were not discussed, nor did a co-creative process take place. Public meetings should be an opportunity to revisit and refine designs and to collaborate and to have repeated over time. Presenting plans and gathering feedback in a one-time event does not demonstrate genuine public input in shaping the project's direction, especially for a project with a road with high daily usage and long-term infrastructure implications. 3, limited representation and public comment results. The city reports receiving 95 public comments. In a city the size of Lakewood, with tens of thousands of residents and thousands who use Bunce Road daily, this number represents a tiny fraction of the potentially affected population. A 56% preference from 95 respondents equates to about 53 people. Far from a representative sample to justify a major infrastructure decision. The city cannot reasonably claim that this feedback reflects the broader public consensus, especially when 18% of respondents preferred neither option and another 15% had no preference. Nearly a third of respondents were not satisfied with any alternative. 4, lack of transparency on technical trade-offs. While the city mentions technical considerations, it has not clearly articulated how these influence the final design or why certain community concerns may have been overridden. Transparency about cost trade-offs, safety impacts, and maintenance implications is essential when balancing public input with engineering decisions. Without a publicly shared design matrix or a report outlining how feedback was weighted against engineering constraints, the community is left to question whether their input had real influence. While the City of Lakewood made some effort to solicit public input, the methods, timeline, and scale fall short of meeting best practices in community engagement. A truly participatory process would have involved broader outreach, numerous meetings, clearer transparency on decision-making, and a representative sampling of community opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, Amy Herberger.
Amy Herberger, 1448 Bunce Road. Good evening.
She's just resetting it.
All right.
You get 5 minutes.
Members of City Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm a proud Lakewood resident who values smart, forward-thinking planning, but real progress must be grounded in transparency, data, and authentic public input, not just in theory, but in practice. That's why I'm asking for you to remove the multimodal component from the Bunce Road Rehabilitation Project. This proposal is framed as a safety and infrastructure improvement, but the process behind it and the final design itself raises serious concerns. Let's start with the facts. First, no safety audit, no traffic study, and no collision data have been released to support the claim that a shared use path will make Bunce Road safer. Meanwhile, experts warn that a combined biking and pedestrians on a single path, especially in a street with over 115 driveways and intersections, increase risk, not reduces it. While public data to back up the safety argument, we can't call this a responsible decision. Second, Bunce Road is a key corridor for emergency services. Narrow lanes and increased pedestrian and bike activity can delay response times. In an emergency, those seconds matter. Adding complexity to a critical access route is not a small change, it's a serious risk. Third, yes, Bunce needs repairs, but resurfacing, drainage fixes, and pedestrian upgrades can be done without fundamentally changing the road's layout. We can improve the corridor without reshaping it into something it was never designed to be. Fourth, the city claims there was significant public input, but only 95 people responded during the official public comment. Yet those few comments are being used to justify a major street redesign. Information the mayor supplied today, okay? This is what I have, compared to that of 950 residents or more who signed a petition opposing this plan. A far more substantial sample of public opinion that's gone largely unacknowledged. Only one public meeting was held. Many residents never received mailers or saw the sign, and the project was voted on 2 days before public comment period was even closed. Okay? This is not public engagement. That's a box checked after the decision was made. Fifth, there has been no comparative analysis showing Bunce is the best option. Streets like West Clifton offer better conditions, wider lanes, lower residential density, and fewer access points. But choosing Bunce without reviewing alternatives reflects poor planning. Sixth, the design will impact seniors, families, and residents who rely on sidewalk safety, and they will see daily disruptions. These aren't fringe cases, they represent the fabric of this neighborhood. Equity means planning with the residents in mind, not around them. And finally, the character of Bunce Road will be permanently altered, reducing green space, complex traffic patterns, and long-term effects on property values and neighborhood identity with no public analysis. Once these changes are made, they cannot be undone, okay? Let me be clear, we're not against improvement. We're against poor process. We believe the city can achieve its goals, safe streets, better infrastructure, walkability, without this flawed design. There are better ways to get there. And most importantly, public funds should reflect the public will. And in this case, it does not. Since there are 950 signatures and counting every day, more and more, when everybody is getting to know what this is all about. Because they don't know. They have not been informed. So I respectfully ask, remove the multimodal component from this project. Focus on what's needed: repairs, safety, emergency access, and truly representative community input. Read the signs up and down Bunce, okay? Lakewood's strength is in its people. We're paying attention. We care deeply. And we're asking for you to listen and to do something to stop this. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Emily Lindberg.
Thank you. Emily Lindberg, 1651 Lauderdale Avenue. I came here today to show my support for the Bunce Road project, the Complete Streets Ordinance, and because I want Lakewood to have a vast and healthy tree canopy. A lot of residents who oppose the Bunce path talk about wanting to save their trees, and I completely feel for them. When the city started sewer work on Lauderdale in 2021, the first thing they did was drastically trim every single tree on my street to make room for the massive trucks that did the sewer work. Later, several trees had to be entirely removed and replanted. I do agree that our city needs more green space with a mature tree canopy. and that new native trees should be continuously planted so that things like sewer projects and severe weather have less impact on our city as a whole. I also hear residents of Bunce complaining that the city will be reducing the size of the public right-of-way green space in front of their property. Again, I feel for these residents. We should be increasing these spaces as much as possible. As a pedestrian, there's a big difference between walking along Hilliard, where there is barely any buffer between the sidewalk and the road, and walking along Arthur, where the tree lawns are massive. Large tree lawns allow our city to have large trees, and I think we can all agree that we want as many large trees in Lakewood as possible. Understandably, the residents of Bunce don't want to lose their trees or tree lawns. I remember hearing similar things not too long ago from the residents of Lake Avenue. They didn't want to lose their tree lawns or their mature trees either. So now, instead of a shared use path along Lake Avenue, we have painted bike lanes that are not comfortable for all ages and abilities to use. They are not consistently cleared of debris and snow year-round, but they are constantly blocked by delivery trucks and lawn service trailers. Currently, there are 194 parking spaces along Bunce Road. I can't tell you how many square feet that is, but it's a lot. Yet I don't hear the Bunce residents suggesting that the city should scrap the idea to increase parking spaces along Bunce. If we had no street parking along Bunce, maybe we could keep both sidewalks, all the current green space, and have enough space for a protected multi-use path that's accessible year-round. I also hear residents on Bunce suggest that instead of making a path on Bunce, you should make ones on other supposedly quieter north-south streets. However, these routes do not connect our city with Cleveland, nor do they allow people of all ages and abilities to safely cross our east-west corridors while traveling north and south, because these intersections are not signalized. According to census data, 19% of Lakewood residents worked from home in 2023, and 69% drove alone to work. I wonder how many cars are parked all over our city streets daily for free while their owners work from home. I wonder how many people that drive to work every day would bike instead if we had connected, safe infrastructure. I would. I wonder how many people would choose to use public transit if it was just as convenient as driving to work and a cheaper alternative to owning a car. I would. I wonder how quickly people would clean out their garages if they could no longer park their vehicles for free on our city streets because our public right-of-ways were being used for people and trees instead of private vehicle storage. The administration already stated that the Bunce project will move forward with the shared use path as planned, which I support. I just hope that when future projects like this come along, the city will be even more aggressive about reclaiming our public right-of-ways, because Lakewood should always prioritize people and trees over cars. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Cassie Organ.
Good evening. My name is Cassie Organ. I appreciate the opportunity to address you all tonight. And I'll be reading fast since I have 5 minutes to say a lot, so apologies in advance. I, like everyone here, am a proud member of Lakewood. We're a welcoming, vibrant, inclusive, and diverse community. Why should that stop with how people travel through it? People on bikes, pedestrians, parents pushing strollers, children, those who use assistive devices like wheelchairs and walkers should all be able to get around and use their streets safely. This is why I support the Bunce Road Rehab Project to include the shared use path. There is so much misinformation going around about this project, and I'd like to speak on some of those topics and explain why this path is essential to our investment in the city's residents and future. First, Bunce is not just a route to I-90 or a road to nowhere. It's a route to neighboring cities, transit options like the Rapid, schools, shops, restaurants, grocery stores. People outside of a car have a right to get to these locations safely just as much as people in cars. Why should their access to the connective route Bunce offers be limited or cause them to reroute themselves all around town just because they are not driving? This path promotes accessibility for all who need to get to their destinations on this main north-south corridor. Speaking of accessibility, this path will be maintained by the city and the school, and that is a luxury for the people on the west side of the street who no longer have to worry about snow removal, and it will ensure that path users have a clear route all throughout winter. Next, there are concerns being circulated that this route will be dangerous as people on bikes moving alleged fast speeds will share the path with pedestrians and children. What is more dangerous, putting people on bikes in the road with no protection to mix with 4,000-pound vehicles, or putting bikes on a path shared with pedestrians? According to the CDC, motor vehicle crashes are a public health concern both in the U.S. and abroad. In the U.S., motor vehicle crashes are a leading cause of death and kill over 120 people every day. I have yet to come across a statement like this related to bicycles. It's interesting to me that we are concerned about speeding bikes, but not so much about speeding cars on Bunce. A quick Google search of the average speed of people on bikes is significantly lower than the vehicle traffic currently present there. Some people suggest letting bikes share the existing sidewalk, which is impractical as it's illegal to ride faster than an average pedestrian. If we're so focused on safety, the path is the clear choice. The beauty of this project is that it creates options for people on how they want to get around. On the west side, we'll have the path, east side will have the sidewalk, and the middle will have the road. Environmental concerns are also cited to serve as opposition to the path. The city has shared multiple times that the impact of trees will be primarily due to the overall street project consisting of sewer, water line, and resurfacing work, not because of the path. This has been true for other streets that recently underwent similar work. Even without a path, you may lose your tree. It is interesting to focus solely on trees but neglect a significant destroyer of the environment, the automobile. We all know cars contribute to air and noise pollution. Bikes are quiet and human-powered. Encouraging active transportation to make it safer for people to choose walking or biking helps take one more vehicle off the road and helps decrease our environmental footprint. Moving on to tree lawns and the concern that traffic is moving closer to homes. A common misconception is that residents will lose their entire tree lawn. The city's website on this project has made it clear that this is not correct, and final tree lawn sizes will accommodate medium to large trees. Additionally, this project does not move the curb closer to homes. According to the project website, the width of the road between Lakewood Heights and Detroit will remain the same, and the width between Detroit and Clifton will decrease, but will be consistent with the rest of the street. This particular section will see an increase in tree lawn width. That means that vehicle traffic will either remain the same distance from or actually be further away from their homes than it is in the current state. This project is a clear investment in Lakewood's future and their future generations. For some reason, children are being told that this path is bad for them and that they shouldn't want it, when it gives them a wider space to travel down, go to school on, and play upon. I've recently spoken to some Lakewood teenagers about their thoughts on this path, and I quote one of them when I say, "We don't want it, we need it." To show the support for the path, Bike Lakewood authored a petition to show that the community does want this project to move forward as designed. This petition went out last Tuesday afternoon, and at the time of writing this, we had 363 total signatures, 85% of them being Lakewood residents. In less than 1 week, the petition garnered support for the project that took the opposing over 2 months to reach, and it currently has half of the amount of signatures the opposing petition does, which has been public for 6 months. The opposing petition shows 69 supporters come from 3 zip codes, one in Lakewood, one in Cleveland, one in Middleburg Heights. Based on this, it's unclear how many signers are truly residents of Lakewood. When you look at the support for the path, it is clear that the residents of Lakewood are behind its creation, the leaders of the city, and the progress this will achieve. Thank you all for your hard work and dedication with this.
Thank you. Next is Jeff Duchik. Did I get it right this time? Oh, I got one right.
Sometimes you write things and then you feel you should say something else. So I'm going to wing this a little bit. So Jeff Dujic, 1493 Bunce Road. I want to show my appreciation to the council to listen to us. As some of my neighbors expressed, we feel we weren't listened to. I don't know what you're going to do with what you're hearing, but at least you're listening, and we hope you continue to do so. I've expressed my concerns about the path in Bunce Road. In the past, I've made comments that I do appreciate the work that many of the path supporters are doing to make Lakewood safe. I think there are some areas here where we can find, at least I hope, some agreement on the facts. I am a little insulted by the frequent use of the term misinformation that we're spreading. So can we at least come up with a few things we can agree on, and please fact check me? I've done my research. One of the things we were accused of before is the inability or unwillingness to read. Me and my neighbors have done so. So first of all, Bunce Road is one of the busiest residential streets in Lakewood. The active transportation plan has identified it as a high-risk network. I hope that's a fact we can all agree on. I hope we can agree on that it's because of the amount of traffic volume that's going down it. It's had 135 accidents in the past 5 years. Bunce, as I mentioned before, is similar to many of the north-south streets, close houses, a lot of driveways, but what makes it different is it is busier. And here I'm going to segue into something where I don't know if it's really appreciated. Me and many of my neighbors have said that it is very difficult to live on Bunce Road. I don't think many other Lakewood neighborhoods realize that. Some of the streets are similar. My sons and his wife came over for dinner. She grew up on Clarence. He grew up on Bunce, and I just asked her about it, and she never realized living on Clarence what it was like. The reason I bring this up is that it is a safety concern. A fact I hope we can agree on: cars and bikes don't mix. There's a danger point when you have an intersection. The Ohio Department of Transportation, the multimodal guide, the guidelines for multimodal paths, Section 5, specifically discourages multimodal paths where you have frequent intersections. And it clearly states those intersections include driveways. I am not familiar in Cleveland with paths that are similar to Bunce. This is not like the Metro Parks. Every point you have that intersection, there's a risk of conflict. We've been called NIMBYs that are just using safety as an excuse. This is the crash map from 2017 to 2021. Green arrows are pointing to what I believe is me, the accident that I had on Madison Avenue in a legal bike lane. The bike didn't swerve to hit me, didn't just meander into the lane, it just made a left turn. Didn't see me. Look, there's a conflict point here, and maybe we won't come to an agreement on it. I found a lot of the comments very dismissive of our concerns about safety. It's going to be challenging for a driver on Bunce Road who's turning in to make a left turn that needs to cross the bike path. They're going to have oncoming traffic, car after car after car. We're used to looking for that gap where we have a little bit of space before the next parade of cars is coming. Will they see a scooter, a bike? A bicycle will cross the driveways every 1 to 2 seconds. We're 30 or so feet between these intersections. Are they going to see the bicycle or the e-scooter that's coming from behind them? I guess that's a matter of debate. I think on that particular point, it hasn't been answered. I haven't heard anyone raise concerns that that's an issue. I believe the active transportation plan is to keep all of us safe, children, and I mean this sincerely. The people are speaking as pro-bike paths and their kids. Use some caution if this thing does get built. It's not as safe as you think it is. I'm not trying to scare you. And the last thing I'll say is, I don't want to see anyone get hurt, but I can tell you that the driver that's going to be involved will be a Bunce Road resident or one of their friends or family, and you're causing a liability for us. Sorry, I got overly emotional there. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, Lisa Smith.
Hello, my name is Lisa Smith. Thank you, Madam Councilperson. I'm not used to city council meetings, so thank you everyone for giving me some time to speak. I live at 1295 Bunce, which is the northernmost block. And I'm here, as I said, to speak in support of the multi-use path. I've been following this project since we got the mailing last year. I was at the first meeting, and it was really, I actually enjoyed the ability to give input because, you know, we had the huge maps, and several of my neighbors who were there were able to speak to the engineers, point out changes that would be made, and they listened. I mean, I felt that they were personally very responsive. But I want to just speak about why I'm in favor of this path. I don't view it as a bike path, and I think we just hear over and over and over that it's a bike path, and it's a multi-use path. One reason I'm in favor of this is that I'm almost solely a pedestrian. I mean, I don't drive. I'm not a cyclist either, and I want to speak why I guess usable surfaces are important in Lakewood. I have two other neighbors who also don't drive on my block alone due to vision issues. So, you know, and they get around frequently on uneven sidewalks, as do the people who live just south of the tracks. I think there are 4 assisted living facilities directly across from Giant Eagle, and then you have the large building up on Detroit. You know, I view these people as my neighbors as well. And I work from home, and what I see every day is people in wheelchairs struggling to get over bumpy sidewalks. You know, there's one man who chooses to use his walker in Bunce rather than the sidewalks. There's another man who lived in a care home facility on Clifton, and, you know, his name was Paul. Everybody knew him. We said hi to Paul every day, and he'd walk down Bunce up to Detroit to go to the Winking Lizard, and twice he fell on sidewalks on the western side, and twice the ambulance was called. And now he doesn't do that. Now he's lost that ability. So for me, this is not about cycling. It's not about, you know, it's about everyone being able to access our city. And so this is why this path is important to me. I don't really know any other way to say it, but I feel like there has, you know, when we call it a bike path, we're just making it, you know, we're just making it a smaller thing. And for me, I was just blown away by the thought of a smooth surface that, you know, children will be able to walk across in the winter to get to school because it will be shoveled. Like, you know, if anybody walks in Lakewood in the winter, you know what it's like. It's like they shoveled or they didn't shovel, and there's ice and there's snow and we have to go in the yard. So, I mean, that's why I just, you know, want to, I guess, stress why this path matters. You know, it matters for Lakewood. When my husband and I decided to move, we used to live on McKinley. So if we talk about busy streets, I can really tell you about a busy street. My block is not as busy as some of the other blocks of Bunce, but well, we decided, you know, where are we going to look? We looked all over. We looked Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, and we decided to stay in Lakewood because Lakewood was the most walkable. It is the most pedestrian friendly, and it makes our neighborhood strong. And I just really feel that this will add to that. And people talk about safety. In my mind, I can't tell you how many times people have nearly, you know, everybody has to watch out where we're going. I don't think it's going to make things anything worse. I mean, I've heard people talk about e-bikes, and maybe that's an issue, and maybe, you know, there's a rule about keeping the road. But other than that, I just wanted to, you know, say, please, when you're considering this issue, do think about the people who actually do need it. And just thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, and then Tim McDonald. See, Kim, I didn't forget. Come on up.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Tim McDonald. I live at 1460 Bunce. I've been on Bunce Road for 47 years, so I have the experience of all whatever my neighbors are telling you. I've had that full experience. My kids grew up on Bunce. They went to Lakewood schools. They learned to ride bikes on the sidewalk, scooters, skateboards. My neighbors are the same way. I watch their kids grow up. Living on Bunce for 47 years, I remember, and you guys, maybe some of you might remember, corner of Bunce and Detroit used to be a Rego grocery store. And then the Gitco came in, and our life changed rapidly. Traffic increased by about tenfold. And so over the years, between the get-go traffic, every day and this is a lived experience on Bunce, every day we're facing speeding cars, overweight trucks that have destroyed the road, and ambulances, fire trucks, parades. We get everything on Bunce. And I'm not telling you people it's anything you don't know. The multimodal path, I'm against it, obviously. It's proposed is wrong for the street. For so many reasons that my neighbors have been here time and time again to tell you about the safety factors, the driveways, the gas stations, Gitco, and the other factors, the environment, the green space that you lose, the difficulty for us to even get in and out of our driveway, what Jeff was just talking about. Someone is going to get hurt. There will be an accident for sure. And you want to put a 10-foot path up in front of all of our properties. That path is going to be 40 feet from my front door. It used to be sandstone. And then you took the sandstone out and put concrete in that I paid for. And now I'm going to look at asphalt, which is a substance that is so negative to the environment. It's going to create all kinds of heat. And it's 40 feet from my front door. You got to wake up in the morning and look at an asphalt path. I'm looking at another road, not just Bunce itself. I'm looking at another road. I believe in safety. I believe in biking. I bike, I run, I walk a lot in Lakewood. I believe in safety. I just don't think Bunce Road is the right project for that. The infrastructure, for sure. I was there for the last infrastructure, and I remember it clearly. Now, you know, they may cut down some trees. You never know what's going to happen, if a tree's going to survive or not. But we have over, like Amy said, there's over 900 people that signed a petition. They read the petition, and they came to the conclusion that it wasn't right. They used common sense, which, you know, could be lacking. So I just wanted to speak my mind. My neighbors are great neighbors. We're a very tight-knit group. We've stayed together all these years through all the stuff that we put up with. And we love our neighborhood. And I want to just thank you folks. I applaud you for what you do, for your service. I really do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that is everyone who had signed in for public comment. Was there anyone else who wished to make public comment? Okay. Yeah, well, sure, Councilman Bullock.
Thanks, Madam President. So, first of all, members of the public, thank you for speaking so eloquently and on so many facets of the Bunce Road project. I think everybody's doing a lot of thoughtful homework. You know, receiving all this, there's a lot to think about, but also, to me, I hope that what is emerging is not one group of residents against another group of residents. And I'd say to my colleagues and to the city officials, I think it's our job to be the facilitator a bit. So, because right now it's been the heavy lift on this issue, these issues have been, at least in the last several months in council meetings, the residents really being the voices. And so there tends to be a little bit of a, like in a football game, I'm rooting for this side, I'm rooting for that side. In one respect, that's perfectly okay and natural. I think what's happening here is that this is a big proposal. It's one of the first big proposals in this category of plan, and so it's growing pains to work through these questions. And so it's appropriate and natural for residents to come in and say, hey, here's what I think, here's what I think. I think, at least speaking for me, we're attempting to be thoughtful listeners, but I do hope that the I think there's some facilitation function that we can be doing as officials in some form or another. I know that the administration has a lot of the factual information. We, though, have our own, documents and resources too. So I don't have a solution here, but I guess I don't want things to emerge where we have one group of Lakewood residents feeling opposed or pitted against another group of Lakewood residents. We're trying to be neighbors here, improve our community, and I do respect the points being made on both sides. So I just wanted to say that, observing the process. Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, one thing I appreciated the comments about, well, everyone's comments, really, and everyone being here. One of my priorities since I've been on council is trying to increase public participation. This wasn't necessarily the way that I wanted to do it, but I do appreciate everyone who takes time out of their busy night to their lives to come and speak with us or send an e-comment, reach out with an email. Everyone who has been engaged on this topic or any other topic, I genuinely believe that we all care deeply about our community and believe in what we're speaking about. And so to Councilman Bullock's point, that sometimes that level of passion can become heated at each other. And that's understandable because we feel strongly about these things. One of the ways that, we've been looking at how we can move forward as this active transportation plan is quite large and extensive and will be many years. This is change. Change is hard. How we navigate that as a community, how we do that constructively as a community, so that we are listening to each other and that we have these conversations. That is, something to be thinking about. That's part of why Vice President Baker and Councilperson Striebeck and I introduced the Complete and Active Streets Education Advisory Board to create a space where folks can have some of these dialogue together in a less formal setting, like we talked about with the council community conversations. The formal setting of everybody gets 5 minutes to come and say whatever to us is not necessarily the best way to have real dialogue. That's the built-in mechanism in our government to be heard, and we try to, hear that, but to actually have dialogue back and forth and have these conversations with each other as community members, not just with us, and to advise us is helpful. So that's something that we're going to continue the conversation on that, and certainly keep listening to each other. Also, as I mentioned before, there is no legislation on this issue before council, so certainly we're happy to keep hearing, but as of right now, this plan has been finalized. It's moving forward. There's nothing for us to vote on about this. So I'd be happy to continue to talk with folks and listen to you. And we will be, like I said, out in the community again, but we can certainly always meet with residents separately as well. So on that, any announcements from council members or other comments? Any announcements from the administration? All right, with that, with no further business before council, we are adjourned.